Welcome back to the alley. Noir Alley, that is. I'm your faithful guide, Eddie Muller. Our film today is a remake, released in the fall of 1951 to exploit the public's interest in televised congressional hearings into organized crime. The film is The Racket, produced by Howard Hughes at RKO. It may have seemed timely and topical, but it's actually based on a 1928 silent film of the same name, also produced by Howard Hughes, one of the first films he made in Hollywood. It's the rare occasion of a movie being remade by the same producer. The Racket was based on a play by Chicago journalist Bartlett Cormack and was a thinly veiled depiction of Al Capone. It detailed Capone's crime operation in Chicago, especially his relationship with Mayor Big Bill Thompson. It had a successful run on Broadway in 1928 and brought its star, Edward G. Robinson, to prominence. He played gangster Nick Scarsey, whose name is changed to Scanlon in the 1951 version. Also part of the play's original cast was actor John Cromwell, who toured the country with the show. When it played in Los Angeles, Hollywood producers discovered Edward G. Robinson. He was soon cast as Little Caesar, which was written by another Chicagoan, W.R. Burnett, one of several screenwriters who worked on this film. John Cromwell also found a career in Hollywood, but as a director, not an actor. And wouldn't you know it? He's at the helm, mostly, of the version you're seeing today. Howard Hughes bought the rights to The Racket in 1928, and he produced the film version before making his more famous Hell's Angels. The Racket had the distinction of being nominated for Best Picture in the very first year of the Academy Awards. It didn't win, but it was a well-reviewed box office hit. The story at heart is a modern-day Western, a big city showdown between a sheriff and an outlaw. Now, to write the updated version, Hughes hired Samuel Fuller, a stroke of genius. He knew Fuller had been a crime reporter in New York and that he'd have an innate feel for the material. Unfortunately, Hughes rejected Fuller's draft, largely because it made the cop as unethical and egomaniacal as the crook. Hughes wanted none of that. Plus, he wanted to play up the workings of the crime commission at the expense of the conflict between the cop and the crook. So he brought in an old buddy, William Wister Haynes, to write a more conventional adaptation with many more characters. W.R. Burnett also ended up writing on the picture, adding additional scenes well after John Cromwell had left the picture. Yes, this is another one of those Howard Hughes films, like His Kind of Woman, Macau, and Jet Pilot, productions that turned into death marches for the cast and crew. It certainly wasn't a pleasant experience for John Cromwell. He fell ill, a likely story, and he didn't direct another picture for more than 7 years. 4 other directors then worked on it. Nicholas Ray most prominently, but Tay Garnett, actor-director Mel Ferrar, and even film editor Sherman Todd all directed reshoots and inserts as demanded by Hughes. Robert Mitchum had starred in more than his share of these patchwork concoctions, and he had a funny line about Hughes's penchant for pulling films apart and endlessly tinkering with them. Mitchum said the cutting and pasting got so confusing he expected to walk into a room and bump into himself walking out. In this one, Mitchum co-stars with Howard Hughes' other favorite actor, Robert Ryan. But this heavyweight showdown is no contest. Ryan totally dominates. He was in the midst of portraying a long line of tortured souls, and Nick Scanlon is one of the most memorable. In the original version of The Racket, gangsters operated in the margins, but by 1951, there was a palpable fear that the mob had infiltrated legitimate businesses, and a guy like Nick Scanlon had to be phased out because he was too much of an old-school crook. Ryan's ferocious performance is the engine that gives this film all its momentum. The film also features noir favorite Lisbeth Scott as another in her long line of nightclub canaries. And William Tallman shows up to show us that future D.A. Hamilton Berger got his start as a uniformed beat cop. Now here is a picture that required 4 writers, and 5 directors to get it across the finish line. Here is The Racket.